Hey, welcome back to the channel, and today we have a review of South Africa versus Australia. It's the first round of the Rugby Championship, and this was a very comfortable win for South Africa. In the end, the scoreboard kind of flattered South Africa a little bit, I think, but South Africa showed a lot of potential once again, and convincingly beat the Australians. It was Eddie Jones' first game in charge, or first test match in charge, since he took over after leaving the England job, or being pushed out of the England job, whichever way you want to look at it. And let's take a look at the match. Ben O'Keefe was the referee, and I think he had a pretty good game overall, along with the TMO. Great communication throughout the match, and a couple of yellow cards, but nothing really controversial, which is a great start to really the international rugby season. So game kicks off. The talisman, at least he was last in the autumn internationals last year. The talisman for South Africa, Willie le Roux, gets a good couple of first touches. He seems to always be involved in everything. He's going on 68 years old, but I don't know, he just brings something to the side, and I think his kind of creativity and kind of adventurousness really benefits the South African team. Manie Libbok is starting at 10 for South Africa. That's still a position that they've yet to nail down their first choice. He's a great player, only 25 years old. He seems to have been around forever. Williams comes on late and plays pretty well. So Libbok was under a little bit of pressure, and I think they really need to solidify who their first choice is still. So Australia strike first, and it's Colin Betty on the wing, who was actually on fire this game. You could see he's such a live wire, and he's got like these huge traps, and he seems to run 100 miles an hour, everything he does, and yeah, he gets over for the first try. A nice try. Australia put it through the hands, and this is the danger that Australia pose to South Africa. They have a great backline, very talented, lots of pace, good hands. So yeah, Australia strike first, and it looks like, okay, maybe Australia are going to challenge the South Africans here on their own patch. Once again, one of my pet peeves, teams switching off after they've scored. Australia kind of do the same. Nick White, I think, is forced to take it into contact. The ball is turned over, and give the momentum back to South Africa. And South Africa capitalise upon it and get a penalty. So the score, I think, then is 5-3 to the South Africans. After some scrappy play, kick tennis, basically, teams feeling each other out. It goes from wing to wing, and the South African wings were superb throughout the game. And Willie le Roux, of course, is involved and puts it out to the wing. And of course, your man Curtly Arendse is over again for another try. The guy just can't stop scoring at the moment. So absolutely shows the potential of what South Africa are capable of. When things click, and this is kind of the story of the game, South Africa didn't play fantastically, but when it does click for them, they've so much talent, and they're very strong in the contact area, very strong in the set piece, which we'll discuss a bit more later. But when it does click behind, when they get like when they start playing together, then they really look dangerous, and they just score at will, basically. Arendse over for a very easy try. Concerning the set piece, I will say that South Africa's scrum was phenomenal. They put Australia under all kinds of pressure, and I think it was a bad day at the office for the Australian front row. But the line-out was a little bit looser. They had a couple of good mauls from the line-out, but in general, I think that's something they can work on in these next couple of games that they have. And if they want to retain the title as world champions, which of course they do, that is something definitely that they're going to have to kind of brush up on and just tighten up on a little bit. They don't have to dominate, but they have to make sure they secure their own ball and it's clean. And in general, South Africa were playing heads-up rugby the whole first half. And what I mean by that is the box kick has kind of died as a tactic, I think, finally. And I'm very happy about it. With players like Willie Leroux and Lebock at the 10, they're far more willing to kind of try something different. They kicked a lot, but they were different. There were variations on the kick. And sometimes they would try and run it out to find better field position. And I think the Australians could learn a lot from that. They often try to clear their lines directly from the first phase ball rather than setting up a better field position. And as a result, South Africa dominated territory and possession. And just a nice variation really from the South Africans. South Africa put the ball through hands quite effectively throughout the game. Some of them were dropped, etc. A few knock-ons, a few handling errors. But they were trying stuff, particularly the offloads. You can see that a lot of the younger players are trying to make something happen. And sometimes it works, sometimes it didn't work. And Arendse Kirtley, try scoring machine. There's a nice break from Australia, from South Africa. And it ends up going down the blind side. Good understanding from the players. And Arendse is over in the corner again for another try. And this is brace. That's his second try of the match. And now it's starting to look a little bit ominous for the Australians. So getting deep into the first half, about 25 minutes in, you just get the feeling that Australia need a score. They need something to happen. And this is a point where really they kind of let themselves down. There was a distinct lack of imagination from the Australian team. Now, it's Eddie Jones' first game in charge, and you don't want to cast aspersions on his coaching style. This is something England were accused of quite frequently, and that's a lack of imagination. When things didn't go 100% to plan, they didn't have a plan B, or a plan C, or a plan D. And you get the sense that Australia really needed a score, but they didn't have they had plenty of flair in the side, but they weren't able to kind of utilize it. And Quade Cooper was a good player, was at a 10, and they have a fantastic backline, but you didn't really see them in the first half. And that's a travesty, really. And Australia really missed a trick there. And South Africa were able to cruise into the halftime whistle ahead quite comfortably. So it's 17-5 as the second half starts, and Australia are going to have to pull something out of the bag here. But it's South Africa who starts stronger, and they put Australia under a lot of pressure. It's not the start the Australians would have wanted, and South Africa really now turning the screws on the Australian pack, particularly. Anytime there's a scrum, you fear for the Australians, and it's not looking good for them. Again, the South Africans attack the blind side, as giving them a change all match, and Arendse is over for another try. A very quick ball. I thought the number 9s, both that came on, the one that started and the one that came on for South Africa, were both excellent. They really dictated the pace of the game, which is what you want from your scrum half, and it paid dividends, and Arendse is over for his hat-trick. Fantastic player, what can you say? Yes, Australia are scrambling, trying to get back in the match, but it's just not working for them. South Africa gets some good field position and go back to their kind of weapon of choice, which is the maul from the line-out. Line-out hasn't really worked all day, but they managed to get a good ball, split the line-out, drive, and over for the try. At first, it looks like it's held up, but after going to the TMO, you can see that the hooker is blatantly dragged down the maul. And the referee awards a penalty try, the first of 2 penalty tries in this game, which is kind of rare. And the guy gets yellow carded. No complaints, really, I think. And this is where the desperation and the discipline starts to go for Australia. They start to give away sloppy penalties, and yeah, it just plays into South Africa's hands. And there's nothing you can do really if you're coughing up penalties to the South African team. So there's a lot more that happens in the match, but basically now South Africa are cruising. They look very, very, very relaxed, and they just kind of trying to enjoy themselves, and why not really? Australia are not really posing a threat. Their best player by a country mile is Colin Betty, and they barely used him, and I think they'll have to look at that. The guy is just a what they call it, a stud, a Chad. You know, he's just a fantastic rugby player, but they can't get him into the game. And beyond that, I mean, they can't match the South Africans at all in the collision area. The South African players really dominated that part of the game. And once you lose that battle, I mean, it's very hard to do anything other than lose the game. So South Africa got their basics right, and then a little bit sloppy, which they'll be disappointed with, but they're just cruising to victory at this point. So at 60 minutes, a lot of substitutions. The bomb squad, I'm not sure they're calling them that anymore, but they replace a bunch of players, and fresh legs shows, and South Africa really get a boost. Players want to prove themselves. They have New Zealand next week. I think it's next week. And yeah, you can see in the South African side, everyone's playing for places, and it's great to see. A lot of young players, a lot of experienced players. Vermeulen is the captain, which is great to see, the old warhorse, Thor. And yeah, South Africa just like up the tempo again, and as soon as they do, they get another score. Yeah, there's a penalty try for deliberate knock on, so that's the second one, and another yellow card. Again, very difficult to argue with the decision. And then Steph du Toit, he's been hunting for a trial game, finally gets it. And the score is getting pretty embarrassing for Australia. So their heads are gone now. They just don't want to be there, which is not a good sign. The morale of the team seems to be broken at this point. And yeah, Eddie Jones has a lot of work to do. Australia, a very talented side, but really humbled by the South Africans. Again, that contact area, and they were never really in it from the first whistle until the end of the game. Australia get a consolation try at the end. The substitute comes on for Quade Cooper, gets a nice try, and shows a bit of pace. Big lad, youngster. So a little bit of a ray of light for the Australians. But it's going to be a hard road to the World Cup for them. South Africa, on the other hand, onwards and upwards for them. Very, very, very talented team, and they got to be one of the favourites. It's a difficult thing to retain the World Cup title, but they definitely have the capability to do that. And based on this performance, it's going to take a very strong, well-organised, physical team to challenge them. And yeah, South African fans must be very happy with the result. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this commentary. In terms of liking and subscribing, please do so. And also drop a comment. I'm planning on doing a lot of World Cup build-up videos. So any kind of topic you'd like to see discussed, please let me know in the comments. But yeah, thank you for listening if you made it this far. And all the best to you. Enjoy your rugby, all right?